I'm Locke Meredith with Legal Lines. I'm pleased to tell you we're going to have Kip Holden on our next show. Kip is a Louisiana legislator. He's going to talk about what he expects the new legislature to look like. As you know, we've got a new governor, Ms. Blanco, taking over for Governor Foster. And there's also possibly going to be a change in the legislature, the Senate side, the leadership. And we're going to talk to Kip about that and what his duties and responsibilities are. So join us on the next Legal Lines with Kip Holden. Welcome to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. I'm very pleased to have on the show today Kip Holden. Kip has been an attorney for 16 years and been in the Louisiana legislature for 15 of those years. Kip, thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure.
Let's get a little personal information.
Sure.
Give me some background and educational history and such.
Well, I grew up in Scotlandville High, did undergraduate at LSU, have a bachelor's in communications, got a master's in communications from Southern, and Juris Doctorate from Southern University, one of 5 children.
Wow,
and,
big family.
It's a big family, but thankful.
I got 4 kids. How many you got?
I have 5 children too. So I like paralleled my parents.
Excellent.
Yeah.
What did you do when you got out of school?
When I got out of school, I went to work as a news director. I used to be a disc jockey.
Is that right?
Midnight to 6 on Friday and Saturday nights with the favorite expression back then, sock and soul to your ear hole. and you know, that's a typical R&B station. And so from midnight to 6, I would do that. Then when I finished at LSU, I was offered the job of news director at WXOK Radio. Then stayed there about 2.5 years, went to work for WWL Radio as a reporter, and then from there back to Baton Rouge to do TV at Channel 2.
Wow.
And so that was my early time, and then decided to do graduate school and then from there become a lawyer, because, you know, it was one thing I try to stress to people. I think when you can have economic independence, it makes all the difference in the world. Sometimes, you know, you are pressurized by people if they control your wealth and fate and destiny. And so I'm thankful to God that I made the decision that I didn't want my fate or destiny tied to anybody but God, and then opted to go to law school, which has made a difference.
Amen, brother.
Yeah.
You're an educated fellow, bottom line.
Yeah, and of course I've done some of the things, you know, we have to do a bunch of things to keep enhancing our skills, but I've been fortunate enough to do the National Institute of Trial Advocacy program, the NITA program as we call it in our profession. And then I was also fortunate enough to then come back the next year and actually teach. So I've taught classes there at least 2 times. And then somewhat of a really crowning moment for me came last year when I had a chance to go to Oxford University and study for a week. And it's just such a remarkable place that you
see. A lot of history there.
Yeah, a lot of history. And you see things like how we go through technology to maintain things like books, and you go into a library at the university and books are still the original books that they've maintained in creative ways, and a lot of those books date back to the 1600s.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but it's really a great experience to sit there and then go through things like we had some people from South Africa, and they had only had the Constitution for 7 years, but yet they were working out democracy, and things were changing, and a lot of things were getting a lot better than what they were before.
That's right. Tell me, what'd you do when you got out of law school?
When I got out of law school, you know, I was not the starving lawyer. When I got out, primarily I did some work for a couple of law firms, and when I finally passed the bar, I'm one of those guys that say, I didn't graduate magna cum laude, but oh, thank you, Lordy.
But you did it.
I did.
All right. It's kind of hard to do when you're doing all those other things.
Yeah, because I was, for part of the
working.
time, I was a single parent and working 40 hours, 6 days to make 40 hours through part of that, because I lost my mom, unfortunately, at an early age. She was 52. But it taught me a lot, and so what I did was I did odds and ends jobs. I mean, even after having a master's degree, things got so bad I found myself pumping gas for $100 a week, because I was, you know, really looking for the fact that, you know, regardless of the circumstances, you cannot quit. And when you have 2 children there and you're helping to raise those children, you then have to make sure that you're providing, even if it's $100 a week, something so they can eat and have some type of subsistence.
Life's not focused on yourself, it's on others. It takes no meaning.
It really does. And I guess today I see a lot of young people who say, well, this is not enough money that I'm making right now. But you have to start somewhere and start and make it. And then when you're there, learn as many different things as you can. Like I can go back to working television. I can go back to working radio. Well, not only did I become a disc jockey, I learned how to do production. And I learned how to do news. At television, I learned how to edit tape. I was on the morning show. So again, when you get that opportunity, don't lock yourself into just one position. Try to learn as much as you can. And oftentimes I tell a lot of young people, don't have just plan A and B. Have A through Z in case A and B fails. So you always keep some options out there, and that's what I did. And so those options paid off with me doing a lot of different jobs.
And learning from everyone.
And learning and really getting to the point where law clerking, passing the bar, and then went to work for a law firm, and virtually I never looked back.
You learned a lot of different skills that have got you where you are today, which is basically being a fellow who's a communicator and a representative for a group of folks in your district.
Right.
Amongst a bunch of other folks.
That's it. And you know, but the other thing is, you know, a lot of times people like go searching for this magic formula. How do I get through this problem? But you can go back and just rely on what you've seen your parents do. And you know, a lot of our parents didn't have degrees. Neither one of my parents finished high school. But they had common sense. And so you use that common sense and really apply it, and it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, I agree with you. I understand you were on the Metro, well, it's called Metro Council now. I don't know what it was called back then for Baton Rouge.
It was Metro Council.
Okay, for 4 years.
Right.
And so you're involved in local government at that level, which I've had the mayor on and a few of the local Metro folks. And, you know, the issues are pretty narrow issues and not a whole lot of them. Basically, it's money and where are you going to spend it, which is, I guess, a microcosm of really what takes place at the state legislature, which is where you are now.
Right, and you're dealing with money, but obviously a bigger budget. The local level, you know, it's my drainage. What about my street? What about other services that I need? Why can't I get the grass cut? What about traffic?
Limited issues.
Yeah, all of those things are there. When you move to the statewide perspective, I mean, you know, it's a myriad of things because virtually every law that's on the books now, for the most part, with the exception of city ordinances that governs, you name it, a lot of that obviously starts in the legislature. And so from health care to education to the environment to crime to many, many other issues, we are virtually writing the blueprint for how this society will carry itself and be governed.
It's amazing. Government is involved in every aspect of life now.
Right.
There's a law that seems to regulate in some fashion everything that takes place.
And that's correct. And that's why I also have difficulty when somebody says, well, why should I vote? Well, because we are affecting your life on a daily basis. Now, if you're fine with that, you're satisfied with the way things are going, and you just have this, you know, casual attitude about life, then don't participate in the process. But if you want to implement the changes, it is important that you come forward in order to make these things happen.
Let's talk about that on the next segment, and that is what you do at the legislature. Locke Meredith with Legal Lines, and we'll be right back with Kip Holden. Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith, and very pleased again to have on the show Kip Holden. Kip's been in the legislature here in Louisiana for 15 years. Kip, again, thanks for being on the show.
Sure.
Let's talk about that.
Sure.
What's going on in the legislature now, and what's happened in the last 15 years?
Well, you know, number one, we have this change that will take place.
It's a big change, isn't it?
It's a major change. 8 years under Governor Foster. You have philosophies that are different now.
He was a Republican.
He was a Republican. Now we have a Democrat. We have the first woman governor. So it's going to be interesting to see the dynamics and whether or not there will be obstacles or roadblocks put up in the way, or whether or not we will continue to work across party lines to get things done for the state.
What is there going to be a change in the leadership because of the change at the top?
Yeah, there will be a change in the leadership from committee chairs to who will actually be the president and pro tem of the Senate, and who will be the speaker and pro tem of the House. And as you know, or a lot of people have been reading, that battle in the Senate has become somewhat contentious because Senator Hankel has been there for a while, He is not willing to just throw in the towel and give up the seat. And so now, behind the scenes, there are a lot of discussions going on, a lot of things happening with various legislators to try to see exactly how a team can be put together that will give Dr. Hines, Senator Hines, enough votes in order to become the Senate president. So it's very interesting.
How does that work? I mean, a legislator has a vote, and
you have to have a majority of the 39 members. So you have a majority, but you actually have to have a vote on the opening day, which will be January 12th, to make everything official.
So it better happen quick.
That's exactly right. And so now we're looking at virtually maybe 5 weeks before we have transitioned into a new administration. The legislature has to get going. We have to make some things happen. Again, we'll have some serious issues that we'll have to address right away. And so now you have two things, almost a parallel track. You have the legislative track going, you have the governor going, but that governor also now has to identify a number of department heads that would be working for her, as well as her administrative team.
Is it customary for the Senate leadership to step down when there's a change in parties, or is this something that is unique with Mr. Hinkle?
Well, it's normally customary that when a governor comes in, that governor gets the leadership he wants. And in this case, she wants a different leader, and I think, it would do us, I think, a world of good to really carry the custom out. Don't put ourselves in a position whereby all of a sudden, because it's a woman, then people view us as being chauvinistic because we will not offer her the same courtesy. And maybe, hopefully, between Senator Hinkle and Senator Hines, they can work things out to really make this a smooth transition, because there are enough things going on, there are enough committees, enough committee chairs, whereby people can still wield some power in that process. But the biggest thing is we cannot afford to get caught up in a major fight in the first month over leadership when we have all of these daunting problems now that are out there, and people are looking to us for solutions that we'll have to address. Because I'm afraid if it gets too bad, then we will have the so-called blood spilled over.
No cooperation.
That's exactly right. And so it'll be typical Washington, D.C. gridlock politics.
What is the division or makeup, Republican and Democrat and Independent in the legislature right now?
Democrats outnumber Republicans virtually about 2 to 1. But, again, it was interesting in some of the discussions that we've had dealing with party leadership, how some Republicans are more moderate than some conservative Democrats in the legislature. The one thing that we've had that's been a success is people able to cross party lines on some issues, looking at the issue on its face, on its merits, and then making a decision. And so,
which is the way it should be.
That's exactly right. And so, we have a lot to be thankful for in that regard. Now, the question is whether or not that will continue, because we really don't need to get bogged down in virtually slapping each other around, because we have to put ourselves somewhat in the back seat and put the public in the front seat, because we are elected to do their business.
What is the reason Senator Hinkle's doing this?
Well, I think...
does he think he has the votes to maintain the leadership?
He thinks he has the votes. Senator Hines thinks he has the votes, and at one time it was a third person that thought he had the votes, and everybody was counting 23 votes, and we only had 39 members in the legislature, so we said...
Somebody was wrong.
Yeah, we said obviously their math and arithmetic were bad somewhere. And so now it's one of those things, and I can understand his position in the sense that, he has been there, he has worked with people. It's not just Republicans and Democrats, but blacks and whites. He has been fair, and he feels that he has been a person that's gotten along with a lot of people. On the other hand, there are some constituencies that have said that, he has not looked out for our interests. Labor, trial lawyers take a bash in trial lawyers. But we have had some things there that I believe that some people who were not inclusive in the process over the last 8 years have some legitimate gripes. So now the question is whether or not those gripes will be heard to the extent that Hankel will be moved out and Senator Hines will be moved in. And a lot of that, again, comes back to what's actually happening behind the scenes, whether or not he can work with some of the Republicans, get them to switch away from Hankel, and then at the same time making sure that the committees, in terms of chairmanships and vice chairmanships, are not all handed out to Democrats, but you share some of the power with Republicans as well.
The chairmanships are important positions because they basically, as I understand it, control basically the hearing of the issues and what issues are going to be presented.
That's correct. They're very, very powerful, but not as much powerful, not as powerful as a chairmanship in D.C. because they really can say, I'm not going to hear this legislation or I'm going to bury it. We can bury it in certain ways, but that to bury that legislation, you virtually have to have enough people on the committee to go along with your point of view or somebody to help kill the legislation. But even there, if a piece of legislation dies in committee, you can still bring that piece of legislation back up as an amendment on another bill. So you still have ways, if you know the rules, to resurrect certain things that you thought had gone away from.
A new guy's not going to do too well if they're real fast, will he?
That's exactly right. And it's interesting. One guy, the first time I was elected, he asked me the question, what do you think is the most important job or most important thing you should know about the legislature? And I said, well, the budget. He says, no, the most important thing you should know should be the rules. Because if you learn the rules, you can do virtually anything. And a lot of people still have not learned the rules. That's why when you get that book and it's the rules of the House or rules of the Senate, you have to really sit down there and study them to make sure you know how to use them in tactical areas.
Let's talk about the committees that you're involved in, both at the local level and the national level next. This is Legal Lines with Locke Meredith and Kip Holden, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith, and again, very pleased to have on the show Kip Holden. He's been in the legislature for 15 years, and we're basically talking about that. Kip, again, thanks.
My pleasure.
Let's talk about the committees that you're involved with and also the big issues that are facing our state right now.
Well, I'm involved on the Environmental Committee, the Education Committee, and one of the Judiciary Committees. But we'll have some big issues automatically dealing with health care, number one, and then education, number two. The governor-elect has already said she plans to hold a health care summit to try to deal with the crisis right here.
What's the crisis? The
crisis right now is we've had to cut the charity hospital system by $66 million.
How many folks does the charity system help?
I don't know roughly the numbers, but you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people that are being seen at those hospitals.
And these are the folks who basically don't have health insurance because they can't afford it. And frankly, who can right now? This is nuts.
A lot of them do not have the health insurance, but some do have it, and we're trying to take care of them. But you're actually right. There are a lot of people who can't afford it, and so now we've had to close walk-in clinics. There are some things that need to be done to make sure that there's preventive medicine so we can catch them on the front end and not have a long-term serious problem. We are looking at cutbacks at the physical facility at Earl K. Long, whereby a lot of people may have to wait longer, or if that person does not get seen at Earl K. Long, the flip side of that is that they'll go to Our Lady of the Lake or Baton Rouge General in order to be treated, and they have to be treated by law.
And the waits at those ERs are already incredibly long.
And
the whole
so
system seems like it's just breaking down.
You're right. The system is virtually in chaos to some degree, but we do have hope of monies coming from Washington that will present a bailout.
And we were talking about that. Senator Breaux
is trying to get
several millions.
Yeah, and he's trying to get it here, but Senator Breaux's focus has been on making sure that a large portion of this money goes to public hospitals. There's a fight brewing where there are some who would like a large portion of that money going to private hospitals. And private hospitals obviously are looking after their bottom line, and that bottom line is trying to make sure that they can get some of these patients in and service some of those patients and then get reimbursed for the service that they are rendering. But on the other hand, when you look at the public system, again, they will The private hospitals, for the most part, cannot even take the numbers of people that we have uninsured. They would virtually go bankrupt. But the public hospitals can.
So is the public hospital can service everybody?
They can service them, but you still have to provide them with the monies in order to do it.
Is the quality of the care equivalent?
Well, I would say yes, but then there will be some who will debate. For example, at Earl K. Long, some will say, well, we don't have all of the equipment that we need, and therefore Baton Rouge General can provide it, or Our Lady of the Lake can provide it. But the thing is, you know, why don't you provide the revenues whereby they can get that top-of-the-line equipment? And then, you know, you'll find us moving away from the stigma of a charity hospital to a university hospital concept whereby people will come to that hospital regardless of their income level, regardless of whether they had insurance, because they know going in there you're going to get quality service.
Make it an asset of the state.
That's
almost.
Right. And let me say this. One time my grandmother was ill with a kidney problem. And of course I had that stigma of what service and the quality of service provided at Earl K. And I started calling around and said, well, tell me who is the best person to deliver this service. And I got the answer. The best person to deliver the service is at Earl K. Long. And that person is teaching people. So you'll find out that a number of people who are the best in the business are at those so-called charity hospitals. They're taking care of patients and also teaching young minds so those young minds can step in and make a difference in the quality of life.
Well, and as I understand it, the local physicians all kind of do rounds at the charity hospitals at times anyway.
A number of them do, and so you know you're getting great care. That's really, really important because, you know, even without all of the equipment, they are still dedicated. And each day they go in there, not just doctors, nurses, other support staff, they still have a primary concern. And that primary concern is making sure those patients are getting the best service they possibly can, regardless of the fact that there may be layoffs. And a lot of them know that very real possibility exists. They are still providing quality service.
How do you see this? How many millions are we talking about?
I think Bro is looking at least $100 million.
Bottom line is, some portion is going to go to charity and some portion is going to go to the private.
Yeah, but we have to make sure that the public hospitals are propped up before we begin to divert money into another system. I think we have that fundamental right that we should go out there and make sure that those things are taken care of.
What about education?
Education is tough. We've made some tremendous strides. We have pumped in.
Where are we in the whole national rankings? I know we're usually way down there.
Well, I tell you what, in a number of the areas now, we're ranking in the top 5 and some in the top 10 in others. Because let me give the governor credit, but also let me give the legislature credit that we went in and we said we're going to start pumping more money into education. The key thing right now is making sure more money is pumped into pre-K. And we have found the statistics. Well, it's like building a house without a foundation if you don't. You lay the foundation, you educate them, and then you can now trace test results that indicate by giving a child a pre-K education, they test better as they get older and in the out years. We can go right up to the school system in West Feliciana Parish, and they have collected the data, and they can show you how great their school system is because they had all of these component parts in place.
Basically, you get the scientific test in essence.
That's it.
The guinea pig's been tested.
It's been tested, and now in West Feliciana, truly a good story, ranked in the top 3 in terms of grades and testing scores.
And that is traced to the fact that the kids were educated at a very young age.
That's correct.
And prepared to, I guess, basically soak up the information.
That's correct. And they started prior to the mandate that we're starting in the state. So one of the other things I believe is that, you know, we have to allow schools to have a lot more flexibility in order to teach children. That flexibility has to be given to a lot of teachers because teachers are very creative. If they can come up with a way that can allow a child to learn, then we should not handicap them. If we send these distinguished teachers to a school and we allow distinguished teachers to then go and take a look and see, well, what else can we put in place in order to make things happen at the school. We must allow those distinguished teachers to begin to implement some of the things that they are observing in order to make a difference in education. And then the other part we have taking over failed schools, and we're going to have to address that because we cannot conceivably take over every school. We have to provide the resources for those schools as well.
A lot of serious issues.
Without a doubt.
Thank you so much for being on the show. God bless you, and good luck in you.
Same to you.
This is Legal Lines with Locke Meredith. Thank you for being with us.